Hello, good morning, and thank you for joining us. Please have the needed faith to know that those around you will need a lot of encouragement. Most of the times, all of us, because of where we're located in Africa, in the tropics, we tend to experience illnesses that ultimately have a certain semblance to what the symptoms have been communicated to be for coronavirus. As a result of that, we've had all these nagging thoughts as to whether that cold I have, that headache, that fever could be what it is. Make sure that you get acquainted with what the symptoms are. The daily tips that we tend to give you right here on the show, please make sure that you watch them closely. You also listen attentively. I'm saying this because just over the last 12 hours, a friend called me and was a bit agitated. Agitated because, well, he wasn't feeling too well. And that nose block, that headache, that unwellness that he was feeling, he thought was close to what he had been reading to be the symptoms. What you also need to do is to make sure that you check up with the medical facility to ensure that you are in the right position. Thank you for joining us for the show, okay? For the last 25 years, we've been bringing to you the best of great content, impactful journalism. And that is why this year is a great anniversary for all of us. And even though the times are torrid, we're still making sure that we live up to the billing to ensure that ultimately we bring you great content that will definitely impact you. We want to talk about some relevant things today. You know that the finance minister was in Parliament, and it's because we now have an emergency, so we will ultimately need a certain plan by which we need to spend. So the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, is before Parliament to have a budget of some 1.2 billion Ghana cedis approved, and it's for a number of actions to ensure the next 3 months are well and good for the ordinary Ghanaian. We'll take a look at it. We'll have some critical analysis of what the contents of these line items for this 1.2 billion Ghana cedi is. Because for all the things that we have to do, the minority in Parliament has been raising questions. So we'll have a hand in it. You would also be monitoring a lot of social media and the contents of many posts, which seem to suggest that that executive instrument that has been approved ultimately could lead to the president eavesdropping people's calls and then trying to know the type of messages that are sent through the telephony networks that we have, among other related concerns, that it could lead to a breach of the privacy of people's data, the messages they're saying, how they communicate with people, etc. We want to have a comprehensive discussion on this. Are we using an emergency period to breach what people's privacy rules are, what also the Constitution and the laws of our country grants them? And so we'll have some discussion relatively on the subject. Mr. Martin Kpebu is a legal practitioner. He'll be joining us as well. And then also Maximus Ametogo is a known IT expert. So he'll be joining us as well. But look, the next 3 hours are for you. Myself and relatedly all the things that we need to talk about will be right here. And well, we've been sharing a lot of food, but this also has been formalized through state structures. But how is it being undertaken? We'll have a discussion with the National Disaster Management Organization. But of course, today, we have Mama V on board, but Kojo Jansen is still streaming into the studio. Kojo Jansen, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning to you, Daddy Roro. I'm doing very well and looking forward to today's show. There's so much to talk about. I'm so glad we're going to get some resolution to this question of whether or not some of these executive instruments are flouting our Constitution. Martin Kpebu will be a great resource on that. Also, haven't you always wondered how NADMO is going to go about the distribution of food in communities? I'm looking forward to learning the modalities there.
Definitely. Well, I know that you have a message for us, but before we get to you, let me also run this by you. We'll be having the newspapers. We have just about 3 or 4 of them. And Benedict also will come your way with the latest sports updates because it's still on. The discussions, even though the games are off the field, are still on through streaming on whether the connoisseurs and the administrators of the game, alongside many other games in sport, will continue. And Kojo, please start off with a message you have for us.
All right. Now, today's message is called Lake. Uncle Ibu White often talks about the lessons he learned from his mother. The other day, he shared an expression she often uses to describe some friends of hers. She calls them lakes into which all rivers flow, but not a single drop returns. I thought about that expression all day and started to realize the many ways in which this statement, at one time or the other, means something to all of us. What did Uncle Ibu's mother mean when she described her friends in this unintentionally poetic fashion? Well, the imagery is pretty straightforward. It suggests a person who takes and takes from everyone, but gives nothing in return. Now, I'm sure you can think of someone you know who's like that, can't you? That uncle from a village that you regret giving your number to because he's always calling to ask for money. That colleague who wants everyone to help them to do their job, but will never lend anyone else a hand. That friend who always calls when they need something, but will never ring you when you're sick. That girlfriend who wants you to pay for everything, give her massages and carry her bag, but won't even make you soak Gary when you're hungry. That husband who expects you to cook, clean, iron his clothes, wash his skid mark underwear, and clip his fungal toenails, but won't even give you the courtesy of opening the car door for you. Let's face it, we all know someone who takes without giving back. And if you can't think of anyone like that in your life, then maybe it's you. Could it be true, though, or could it be that we're all lakes in one way or the other? Do we always give value for the investment, the expenditure, the commitment, the blessings that people bestow upon us? Now, if you're always late for work, if you take 2-hour breaks and spend the rest of the time using your work computer to catch up on social media, but you take a full salary at the end of every month, are you not a lake? If you always preach to your congregation about tithes and offering and sowing seed, if you know which church members earn 20,000 Ghana cedis every month, but you don't know which one lost a child last month, are you not a lake? If you run around the country begging Ghanaians for their vote, promising them development, education, health, prosperity, change, promising them solutions to their every problem, promising them better leadership than they've ever had, and then you get the vote, and all you do with the power is enrich yourself and protect your criminal friends, are you not a lake? My dear friends, if you recognize yourself in any of these descriptions and you don't like what you hear, then don't be a lake. Be a river. Water flows into rivers from many streams. Those are your blessings, your gifts. And all the time and resources others invest in you. Rivers in turn flow along the banks, nourishing the soil and giving opportunity to plants for them to grow. They provide homes for fish, and of course, they flow into the occasional lake. But ultimately, more benefits accrue from a river's flow, and the more streams flow into it, the more a river grows and the more people benefit from its existence. Since the novel coronavirus found its way into our shores, the sharp inequalities in our population and inefficiencies of our system have become very clear. It's become necessary for those who have plenty to give so that those who have nothing can live. I've been watching in amusement as some pastors are lamenting the president's ban on gatherings simply because it made it difficult for them to collect offering and tithes. These same pastors who performed miracles and healed all kinds of diseases are frantically praying for COVID-19, which is also a disease, to pass so that they could go back to performing miraculous healings of other diseases and selling magical oils and stickers. These are all leaks who have abused their pastoral authority over us by taking constantly and giving nothing back except lies and lies. May God forgive them all. My dear friend, to whom much is given, much is expected, and you have been given so much. For all the blessings you've received, make a vow today to give back far more to the world. Give back far more than your salary is worth to your employers. Give far more than the price of the product to your customers. Give back far more than your spouse's love. Give back far more than your friend's affection. Turn water into wine. Feed the 5,000 with 5 loaves of bread. Give far more than you receive. Let those who bless you be glad they chose you and nobody else. My name is Kojo Yankson, and so much was done for me. That's why I will do even more for you. Good morning, Ghana.
And of course, it's time for the news. The Finance Committee of Parliament has approved an amount of some 1.2 billion Ghana cedis for government to access funds from the contingency fund to finance the coronavirus alleviation program. Now, the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, presented to Parliament the policy document on CAP, seeking approval to spend the said amount. Now, this follows demands by the minority for government to provide details of funding of the money requested by the minister to tackle coronavirus and its impact on Ghana's economy. The Finance Minister explained that the money will help see Ghanaians through the challenges brought upon them by the pandemic.
Medium enterprises and minimize job losses through that, and then provide additional funding for promotion of industries to shore up and expand industrial output for domestic consumption and exports. So that's another level of funding that we'll have to begin to think through. But the expenditure plan for the CAP will cover an initial amount of 1.204 billion, representing the CD equivalent of $218.95 million. Of the initial 1.2 billion, Mr. Chairman, 600 million will be allocated to support businesses. 280 million will be used to support households for the provision of food, water, and sanitation. For the rest of them will be focused on protecting our health workers. That is the waiver of taxes to the workers, the personal income taxes for 3 months, allowance for 50% of their basic salaries for all frontline health, and then busing for health workers. So it's essentially in 3 categories: for household, for health workers, and then loans to support the majority of our people who are in micro and small businesses during that period. Mr. Chairman, that essentially is the structure, and details of implementation can also be discussed.
The Central Region has recorded its first case of coronavirus. A 57-year-old man is said to have traveled from the United Kingdom and arrived in Ghana on March 17. He subsequently developed symptoms and then tested positive. So far, 13 people are said to have made contact with the man after preliminary works done by contact tracers were undertaken. Richard Kwejenyako has details from a news conference in Cape Coast.
The Central Region has recorded its first confirmed case of COVID-19 disease.
Central Regional Minister Kwame Duncan announcing the region's first case. Regional Director of Health Services, Dr. Akusia Owusu-Sapong, gives succinct account of how things happened leading to the recorded case.
Surveillance department sending me the reports, the case-based reports, and then the positive confirming a case of a Ghanaian who traveled to UK and came into the country about 2 weeks ago and was having some symptoms. He called friends at Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, a doctor, and then he went with another health personnel. They went and took the specimen and sent to the Gucci, and the results came out as positive. So early this morning, as soon as we got to the office, we held an emergency meeting. The contact tracing team from the Metro Health Directorate were invited, and then we deliberated on the contacts to be identified and traced. So they went to the field to trace the contacts, and 2 p.m. today they came with some information. So far, we've identified 13 contacts that we are tracing, and some will need self-isolation, and some will need isolation in an area. So far, we've identified a secondary school within the region that we are going to hold those who are living with their families in small apartments, and therefore it will be difficult for them to self-isolate. We are isolating them in that facility.
I will take you to the Ashanti region, where Regional Health Directorate has identified 10 communities as hotspots for potential spread of coronavirus. The region's case count so far has increased to 25, as the national confirmed cases also rise to 313 with some 6 deaths. The Ashanti Regional Director of Health Services, Dr. Emmanuel Tinkrine, says the upsurge is due to active surveillance adopted by the Directorate. He's been interacting with Lava Firm's Prince Apia.
The situation in Ashanti region, as I said, we follow closely Greater Accra. So far, we've identified 25 cases. The 25 cases, some of them were contacts that we were tracing, and then some of them were patients that we identified through our routine surveillance. And all those that, the 25, we also have another strategy to make sure that we get their contacts. And the reason why we are getting more cases is that we are doing active surveillance. We are actually going looking for cases. Yes, where people go to hospital and they are diagnosed, we call it passive surveillance. So this time we've added 2 strategies: enhancing surveillance, active surveillance, moving to high-risk areas, and then picking cases. And
so with these 8 new people, were they all are they imported cases? Are they people who have travel history, or they are, residents who have had contact with an infected person?
3 of them have contact travel history, and then about another 3 of them has contacts with people with infection, but 2 of them no contacts, no travel history. Yes, and we are getting those community spreads. We are getting them.
Must we be worried, the community spread?
No, not at all. Not at all. As at now, the rate is not very high, but as I keep on saying, we should observe the rules and the regulations.
You mentioned that there's been some hotspots depending on the individuals or the people that get infected. How many hotspots have you identified in Ashanti region so far?
You see, so far we are having close to about 10 hotspots. The reason is that for every case we get, every positive case we get, that area becomes a hotspot. So we started with 5. Right now we are moving close to 10. And the more we get cases, the more hotspots we'll be getting. So far we have about 10 hotspots.
What does that translate into? What kind of picture does it paint? Must we be worried?
No, we shouldn't be worried at all. The reason is that if we adhered by the protocols and then the guidelines, then there's no need to fear at all. Because though it may be a hotspot, but you are not going out to get yourself infected. You only put yourself in danger if you try to do the wrong thing.
In this communities that you've identified as hotspot, what is happening to the residents there?
First we trace the contacts. So we talk to the person who is infected. He will tell us all the contacts that he has come into contact with, all the people, and then we also identify them. Then 1 kilometer radius of that house where we had the infection becomes the hotspot. So that one we move house to house.
And so far you are getting people voluntarily coming in this area?
It has been very perfect.
Still in the region, religious groups are pleading with individuals who fall outside the vulnerable net to refrain from gate crashing on government food distribution program. The leaders say they have observed a trend where people emerge from their homes all of a sudden just to join needy persons wherever food is being distributed. They say efforts by government and its partners to cushion these persons most affected by the lockdown is being disrupted. Nanaya Ojima has more in the following reports.
Churches are collaborating with the National Disaster Management Organization to serve hot meals and distribute raw food to street children and other needy people. The Regional Coordinating Council on Wednesday took delivery of food items meant for such vulnerable individuals. Ashanti Regional Minister Simon Osei-Mensah insists the items must be given only to the vulnerable and no other.
In total, it's going to be about 100,000 packs. They're made up of different items: rice, oil, sardine, sugar, gari, etc. There are various items that are going to be included in a single pack. The caution to everybody within the lockdown area is that these items are for the poor and vulnerable. It's not for everybody. Somebody like me or Osei-Mensah, I cannot use my position as the regional minister and go and assess the supply of these items. That would be criminal on my part. So those who have the capacity to buy or fend for themselves, we beg them, they should not write to the police and allow the poor and vulnerable, the most needy, to go for these items.
Already, thousands of people have been captured under the program. Anglican Archbishop of Internal Province of Ghana, Most Reverend Professor Daniel Yinka Safo, chairs the Kumasi Local Council of Churches. He says people who rush out of their homes for such ration at the expense of targeted persons are disrupting efforts by government and its partners.
Wherever the items are going, a pastor or a church representative will follow it so that the items will go to the rightful people, so that it will not be deviated and go anywhere. That is the work we are going to do for the president. From here, they are sending all the items to the distribution points, which are church premises. And then those people, the municipal chief executive and all those people, NADMO, and I say, will know, they know the electoral areas. And those places will be where people will assemble and will give the items to them.
Meanwhile, NADMO says it is well positioned to respond to any unforeseen incidents associated with COVID-19. Nana Ajiman Prempe heads the organization.
I think we are here purposely for this coronavirus thing. But you saw, NADMO is the only disaster management organization in the country. We are always prepared. We know that very soon the rains will be setting in, and we are prepared. We will deal with that in another event.
For JoyNews, Nanaya Ojima reporting.
And that's it for the news. But we have more news. We have a couple of newspapers, but we have some links to some online portals we have to share with you, especially our main portal, myjoyonline.com. Before we even do come there, make sure you go there and get to acquaint yourself with what the content is as published. But get interactive. We have Facebook JoyNews on TV. We also do have a Twitter handle at JoyNews on TV. And then My Joy Online TV is our official YouTube channel. We're taking a break. When we come back, Mama V Uswabwaje and Kojo Yankson live here. So we're ready to do the newspapers, and of course Mama V is here. And Mama V, good morning to you. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, Roland. Way better. I thank God for my life. Yeah, how are you?
Chala Ade.
Great.
And then we also have Kojo streaming into the studio as always. Kojo, Mama VZ is around.
Bad boys.
I miss you so much, VZ.
Bad boys, you haven't.
Oh, it's good to see you, though.
Yeah,
I was so sad when I heard you were not well.
Yeah, but I'm better now. It's good to be back.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's jump straight into the newspapers, I guess.
You have a cold?
Yeah, let's do that.
No, I didn't want
to be mischievous.
Okay. Just that we just played some tips, so I was wondering.
I didn't want to bring my cold here. That's you're coughing. Now you're coughing. You should stay away from here. No coughing. So I'll do the Daily Graphic, the Ghanaian Times. I don't know what you have, Roland.
Well, I have the Crusading Guide, and Kojo is the one on the scale.
Well,
so he'll make a choice of which
stories.
stories.
Me out. I want one too. Let me have the Daily Graphic.
Okay.
No, you can have the Times.
Times for you.
Yeah, you can have the Times. So let's start with the Daily Graphic newspaper. Here we go to what's on the front page. President optimistic about robust health system after COVID-19. Jealous girlfriend sets wood market ablaze is also another story on page 11. Ghana's judge in Cote d'Ivoire border dispute dies. Dr. Thomas A. Mensah. There's a picture of him on the front page of the paper, which you would see very shortly. But the banner headline, COVID-19 continues to bite, Easter activities on ice. So there's a flashback of a picture there. What we will be missing, essentially what we are missing. Such scenes during the Easter festivities. So a scene like what's on the front page of the Daily Graphic, we're not seeing this year, obviously because of the situation we find ourselves in. On the back page of the paper, Kumasi Central Market reopens today. Ahomka Foundation supports Setre, Kumewu districts with medical equipment. And if you check out what's in the center spread of the paper, government seeks approval to spend $219 million fund would cushion vulnerable against COVID-19 impacts. And then include us in COVID-19 stimulus package, media groups demand. And details of that, I guess, when we get into, reviewing a lot more details, we'll bring that to you. But for now, that's what's in the center spread by way of headlines, the back page and the front page of the Daily Graphic. Roland?
All right. Kojo, you ready with the Times?
Yeah, let's do the Times. I've got the banner headline, which is, let's all join COVID-19 fight. Clergy urges public. Also on the front page, COVID-19 cases hit 313, records one more death. And obviously the details of those are on the Ghana Health Service website. ADB donates 200,000 Ghana cedis to COVID-19 Trust, also on the front page this morning. And right there in the top right corner, Ghanaian Times takes a break. Now, I believe this is all in furtherance of Easter, and so they wish everybody a happy Easter. The Ghanaian Times is one of the few newspapers that have stayed publishing through this COVID-19 period, but I suppose they are taking a break now for the religious holiday. Right, back page of the Ghanaian Times, Togo renews collaboration with Ghana to fight against COVID-19. And fisherfolk at Tema Canoe Basin clean up beach. That's it from me.
Right. So let's do the last one we have. It's been our states over the last week or two.
Yeah.
Under lockdown. So we're locking down the new crusading guide. This is our last paper. So we have the last one. COVID-19, Ghana hits 313 cases. And then we have announced stimulus package for frontline media practitioners, Primpack, like us. So myself, Mama View Sobwaje.
Who is the appeal? Who is the appeal going to?
Government. You know the finance minister was in Parliament for 1.2 billion. So
good luck to you.
Want to be factored in. There's some contingency funding.
We hear you.
So Mama B doesn't sound like she agrees.
She doesn't sound like it will be successful. Not that she doesn't sound like.
I don't agree, actually.
Oh, okay.
On principle.
On principle. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we have.
Should we talk about that now?
Yeah, we can.
After he's done with the review.
Yeah. So then I have this one. Kaswa market cramped, and I'm surprised this will be the situation, but that is the situation we're reporting. In defiance of social distancing protocols, and our story is down there. You find also on the front page. Meanwhile. For a youth campaign, the National Youth Authority is donating essential items to the Health Ministry as part of the effort everybody is doing to make sure that they show up or complement efforts of government. And could you, that'll be it. But the appeal. We need some stimulus package.
You do? Okay.
Well, I don't think it's going to be bad because there are a lot of media houses, in my estimation, even before coronavirus arrived, that had been closing down around the world, and Ghana was not an exception. Now this is going to hit them hard. Yeah.
So is this because of corona or because of challenges before corona? Be clear, Roland. Because you said media houses were closing down even before.
Because of challenges as a result of the pandemic.
Okay, so that's the justification.
Yes, I think so.
Okay. I mean, that's your opinion. I mean, I just disagree because.
Okay.
Yeah.
You disagree because?
We're not working for government.
Well, if you ask me, we play a critical role in what we do. But I also do know that media establishments like the Multimedia Group, it could be any other you find, whether it's Media General, etc., because of the capitalization of the industry, may have made projections for the year. Ultimately, these projections would have been eroded. They will affect the bottom line. So this is not journalism. This is the business. Are you making a case for the business, or you're making a case for journalists? Because it cannot go to just the journalists. If you take us, for example, we have cameramen who make sure that what we're seeing are successful. For example, Kujo has been set up so well. So there's a technician who is involved, somebody with an IT expertise. We have sound engineers around. We have directors and all that. So the stimulus package needs to go to the entities. Let's say if the Multimedia Group can have like $10 million as part of the stimulus package.
Kojo, what do you say?
Well, first of all, I agree with Mama B. I don't think the media should get a stimulus package, and I certainly hope I don't get a letter from the GJA for this. But for a different reason, not for the same reason that Mama B has. So yes, it's true that we don't work for government. Some media men do work for government, but also government is providing stimulus for healthcare workers in the private sector. So I don't think that just the fact that we don't work for government would disqualify us. For me, the reason why I don't want a stimulus package from government is because of what I talked about in the message of motivation today, about lakes into which all things flow but nothing comes out. You know, the media has a tough job. We do it every day under normal circumstances. But under extraordinary circumstances, that is when we are called upon to be extraordinary. That's when we are called upon to do even more. Now, look at it this way. bus drivers, the Ayalolo drivers who are taking people to, hospital, the trotro drivers. If you enter a bus or a trotro and you cough, are you not putting them at risk? So should they also be added to the frontline workers? Because they are out there, they are working. If they don't work, we can't get to and from anywhere. So there are so many people providing essential services. But does it mean that we should provide stimulus for all of them? And can this nation afford it? Look, already, if we know what it is costing us to keep the taps flowing, to keep the lights on, to provide incentives for the frontline workers, all 100 and something thousand healthcare workers, all of the incentives that have been already discussed, if we knew how much they were costing, and if we know how much our economy is losing every day because we are all forced to stay at home, I don't think we would be calling for government to add on to their burden by providing stimulus for journalists. We already do a dangerous job. We do it even in normal times. And in abnormal times, we are called to keep up that standard and keep the nation informed. If we fail, we are letting down the nation. We can't ask for extra cash before we do a good job. Okay. That is my opinion.
Yeah, so I'll cap it simply as this. The World Bank, from midday today up to midnight around the world, is going to have a briefing on the state of the global economy. Africa, particularly the sub-Saharan African region, is expected to be in recession. And the recession is going to be 2.5% in the negative, okay? Ghana was expected to grow at a certain percentage. We've downgraded that to some 2.5% just over the last 2 weeks. That also speaks to the related issues about how businesses will be suffering.
So here's what I'll say.
If you think of us as a business, then I think that we need a stimulus package.
I think make a case as a business, but stop talking about journalists. Get what I mean? I think
the core business that the media agencies do is media.
Yeah, but does it matter because we're talking about businesses going down because of the times that we're in? So make a case as a business.
So if government is giving a stimulus to the pharmaceutical industry or any other small scale industry, then they should give stimulus packages to media entities which operates with journalists.
Look,
go with the business sense. Make a good case.
I agree with Mama.
Make a case as a business.
Make it for businesses.
Yeah. Stop just saying because you're a journalist.
We are called to this job.
By the way,
then we can stay at home.
Yeah. Kojo, we should have some tea after this. Okay, let's on page 11 in the Daily Graphic newspaper, there's a rather bizarre story of a jealous girlfriend who felt the boyfriend had left her and 2 other women he had impregnated allegedly and was hanging out with another woman. So she decided to put his house on fire. And it stretched beyond that. This happened in Agbobloshi. It's a Zabrama Wood Market at Agbobloshi. It went beyond. Yes. So the story is captured here on page 11 in the Daily Graphic newspaper. Rather very sad there. The story says last Tuesday, the angry woman allegedly mobilized the 2 other women and approached the man, resulting in a confrontation during which one of the women set the room on fire. Properties worth thousands of Ghana cedis were destroyed during the fire, which started at about 1:50 a.m. and lasted for about 3 hours before the Ghana National Fire Service could douse it. Yeah.
So a lot of people live in that market.
There.
Yeah.
And now that we're trying to isolate people, they have nowhere to live.
Yeah.
Or because of some jealous girlfriend and her squad. This is crazy.
Well, that's bizarre.
If it's true, I hope the arrests have been effective.
No, so they haven't. According to the story, she has not been arrested yet. I guess it's still under investigation.
But today, by tomorrow, the holiday for the Easter season would have started.
Oh, Charlie, there's nothing like that this year. Yeah.
So we have a formal announcement by the Minister for the Interior, It says that the holiday is starting tomorrow and ending on Monday.
When I saw that release, I was like...
Monday is a holiday too, right?
Yeah. Under lockdown. Oh, no. The lockdown will end on Sunday.
Yeah. I suspect that we'll hear from the president before the weekend.
Definitely.
I'm thinking by tomorrow. I don't know what you guys think.
Extension?
Definitely.
It has to be.
It has to be. We're mingling too many times for us to be comfortable.
Can I ask something?
Go ahead.
You know the story you did on the news about the first case in the central region? There was a detail that bothered me. So you know when the health official was explaining how it all happened, she said that this person has given some contacts and they've started tracing them, and so far they found 13. Now, out of these 13, some of them are going to be quarantined at home. Or in this case, yes, in this case it's quarantine, not isolation, because we don't know whether they have the disease yet. And then some of them will be kept in a school, an abandoned school, because they live with large families in close proximity, so they cannot be asked to self-quarantine at home. But first of all, why are we not testing them? According to Kojo Oponkruma, the new strategy is that all contacts will not just be traced and then left until they get symptoms. They will be tested. So why are we just self-quarantining these people in the central region? And why are we taking some of them out of their densely populated families to go and isolate them somewhere else and not thinking about the families that they were with and the contact that they have had with those families so far?
I think,
why is that not part of our thinking?
I think that's a great question there, but I'm not sure that what the regional health authorities in the central region will be doing in Cape Coast ultimately will be different from what the national rules or the guidelines are. I'm sure they will follow that, but because this is just a developing story. Yes, of course. And I think we just have to get back to Richard Kojonyako to get the details because guidelines are guidelines and rules are rules. So I'm sure they'll follow through all the protocols. Are you familiar with the man? Because
no, I don't know who it is. They didn't mention his name, so I don't know who they're talking about.
Okay.
Okay, I guess we have some time to do myjoyonline.com, unless you two have something to say.
You look nice, that's what I have to say.
Oh, thank you, Kojo. Thank you.
And I enjoyed your cooking.
Why,
no comment. No comment.
I thought it was supposed
Let's
to be social distancing.
myjoyonline.com.
You went to her house?
A lot happens on Zoom.
Her cook.
Virtually.
Kojo, let's do myjoyonline.
All right. So the bank hospital in Mahama is Mahama's legacy, according to Arthur Forson, and he's countering Kweku Bako there. Why does it matter? Oh, yo. Right. What else is on myjoyonline.com this morning?
Don't panic over increasing COVID-19 cases. The Ghana Health Service is urging Ghanaians. Also, farmers, CSOs warn about imminent food security challenges after COVID-19 crisis. Finance Minister gets approval for 1.2 billion Ghana cedis to fund coronavirus alleviation program. Central Region records first COVID-19 case as national tally rises to 313. You can continue, Kojo.
Yeah, okay. So water production capacity inadequate, according to experts. They're warning governments as they pledge to free supply amid lockdown. Graduates invent motion-activated sink to aid coronavirus fight. It's lovely how many inventions are popping up as a result of this crisis. Mass movement of foreigners into Ashanti region banned to prevent escalation of coronavirus spread. I thought it was locked down anyway. Nobody should be able to enter Ashanti region. JoyNews reporter shares experience after exclusive access to a coronavirus holding center. Fascinating story there by Latif Idris.
Roland, let's do the BBC as well.
Well, so we have to go through The main stories on BBC World. So we have Australian police seize cruise ship. It's Black Boss investigating why a cruise ship allowed ill passengers to disembark in downtown Sydney. Meanwhile, Uganda is banning outdoor exercises over coronavirus, and France is doing that as at this morning, because you know when you have a puff, it's a danger, clear and present danger to all those around you. But I've seen many.
You know that's banned in Ghana too.
Oh, but people are exercising, Kojo.
It shocks me.
Yeah.
It seems we are really not interested in, implementing these measures.
But if you exercise and you do social distancing, because I've seen people in New York also, doing their morning runs, but trying to keep their distance. I guess it's how you do it.
I think the point is that you shouldn't put yourself in a situation where you can't control other people's behavior. And when you're out jogging, can you really vouch for the next person that they are not crazy and they're not going to jump up and grab you and cock you?
So the thing is, don't do it in a group. I mean, I could do my early morning jogging in my neighborhood, for instance. I won't meet anybody.
Yeah, but your neighborhood is different.
Because you live in Trasaco, like neighborhood, so we are not worried about that.
I'm wondering how somebody in Newtown or Sukura.
No, listen, you can do it. I mean, you don't necessarily even have to get out of your house. You can use your small compound and do whatever it is that you want to do.
That's better. That's better. All right. Okay. So we have to go for a break. I had this one, if I can. This one is not Sally for combat, so this one is a new one. Bismarck at Accra Day, and he says, I would like to use this opportunity to thank God for the life of my dear Isabella. May God continue to bless and continue to strengthen her. Today marks a Holy Thursday. There's no Holy Thursday, Masa.
Oh, but it is. I mean, it's in his heart. Yeah.
Okay, it's holy.
And
every day is
holy. And it says, make today being a holy Thursday, settle any misunderstanding between us and continue to be together and live happily. Apparently, Bismarck.
Bismarck, if you have
Thursday relationship,
if there are things you have to do, sort yourself out and don't use any holy thing to.
Okay, so
let's do the BBC
so Isabella is at Asutari in the Bismarck and Isabella, please come together.
All
Bismarck
right,
is dying.
Let's do the Africa page of the BBC. That story that Uganda bans outdoor exercises over coronavirus. Details there. There's another story about the auditoriums of Nigeria's mega churches being empty and their gates are shut as they are forced to observe a government ban on large gatherings to halt the spread of coronavirus. That's a very difficult time for churches around this time. This is Easter. African leaders back WHO head against Trump attacks. We know his roots from Ethiopia, and yesterday Trump threatening to hold funding to the World Health Organization, saying that they've been more towards China than other countries. I mean, like, seriously. So yesterday the WHO actually outlined what they've done since the outbreak of the coronavirus from the very beginning, and it's been 100 days. So they did point by point what they've done.
But I think that Donald Trump's views about Dr. Tedros is not different from what the Europeans and the larger sections of America seem to think. They seem to heap the blame on the World Health Organization for not calling,
so the World Health Organization should have asked countries to shut their borders? Is that what we are saying?
Very surprising.
I mean, we're independent countries, everybody. So just like we did in Ghana, it was, like we say, homegrown. We decided what we wanted to do. We decided that we have our own peculiar issues. I mean, when Mr. Trump decided to shut his borders, remember he opened to the UK. He said, I'm closing to everybody else, but I'm opening to the UK. Was it the WHO that gave that advice, for instance?
They want people to cut funding to America because of that. Now, it's interesting. The WHO did make a couple of mistakes. First of all, it took them far too long to label it a pandemic.
Exactly.
Well, because it needed to cross a certain threshold, because we've been in that place before. So you couldn't just wake up and say...
The argument is that it crossed that threshold a long time before they called it so. It had gone into several countries, I think 50, 55 countries by the time they called it a pandemic. So some argue that, you know, it didn't have to take 55 countries first, but, you know, I guess that's a debate. But the other thing that I think they could have done better is the issue of masks. The WHO were quite categorical that masks do not save you from COVID-19. Yeah. And they even discouraged it because it might create a false sense of security, which could actually be
they still don't have a clear position on that, by the way.
Absolutely. Yeah. They are reluctant to say that we should wear masks. And I think they are right. Look, it's too, we don't have time. Otherwise, if ECHO could have brought up the video we played during the news of Ken Ofori-Atta speaking to the Finance Committee of Parliament, I want you to see how he's wearing his mask. He's covered his mouth and left his nose.
Well, we do know that.
And he keeps, exactly. And he keeps touching his face to adjust it. Every time the mask falls, he touches his face to it. There you go. That's him. In a moment, you say, look at that.
And that's not the best way to wear the mask at all.
Safe?
No.
After he has touched the table in front of him, then he touches his face.
Yeah.
And most people who wear masks will end up doing that. This is why the WHO doesn't want to rush ahead of itself to say everybody wear masks, because it might actually make things worse. Look at that. Look at that.
No, but we have to also say that while we do know what the WHO and its position is, we have top medical journals making publications from top medical people who are saying that the mask definitely will not protect you. I read a story in the Daily Mail, I think yesterday evening, and the UK health authorities working within the NHS were very categorical on that. And I think that we need also to follow through with the protocols as they are. There's a story also on that same BBC page about a South African communication minister who has been suspended for a month or so or two without salary by Cyril Ramaphosa for apparently going to a friend's house, dining and showing the two of them dining over dinner, you know, and showing it on on their social media. So it's a question about, you know, authorities or those in public office following through whatever rules of engagement that have been put in place by their own government within this period.
Roland and Kojo, there was also a story, I think early this week or over the weekend, about the Scottish medical officer, the one who gives the rules that even appeared in the video, telling people what not to do, who actually traveled with her family against her own advice to a family home twice. And she ended up resigning. Initially, she didn't want to, but, you know, there was a lot of voices against that, because it's like you're not practicing what you're preaching. So are they just given the advice? It's easy to tell people social distance. Or don't touch your face.
Mama B, it's not easy. It's not easy, especially not touching your face. Look, in this conversation with you, if I tell you that I've touched my face about 20 times, will you believe me?
Of course I will.
It's a difficult
thing to do,
I mean, luckily I'm at home, I'm on lockdown, and so, you know, I'm not getting in contact with surfaces that are not being cleaned every few hours. But it is subconscious. I don't think about it. So people out there who are working in markets, who are driving buses, who are, you know, you guys in the studio. If you are not conscious of it, you might be infecting yourselves without, you know, thinking. It's a scary thought.
For us, right, in the studio.
Just before we run on the issue of the issue of the mask, I saw a video. Initially, I thought it wasn't real, but the personalities in that video, and this is the Czech Republic, where they're encouraging all citizens of their country to wear the mask. So you find ministers, very important people in the country, explaining why the mask is useful. So that country is going with the mask idea. Yeah.
Yeah. If everybody wears it and if we follow the protocol, it will be helpful.
The slogan
is, can we?
Slogan is, you protect you, I protect. So I protect, you know, you protect me, I protect you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, guys, this is where we have to wrap up the review.
Yeah, definitely. We have to go for a break. When we come back, we'll have some conversations. We told you, Kojo, that discussion is on. The finance minister going before parliament to get that 1.2 billion package approved, and then the concerns of the minority about, you know, the line items really and all that. So we'll take a look at all of these when we come.
Yeah, in the meantime, log on to myjoyonline.com and enjoy a lot more news. Stay with us.
Right. Sports is next.
$1.2 billion, that's the figure. It's called the Coronavirus Alleviation Program. And we do know the finance minister was in the house to make sure this was approved. Of course, when you look at the estimated line items, we have 4, and I'll just take you through. Loans for micro, small, and medium-sized businesses. We also have busing of health workers in Accra, or let's say the lockdown areas. We have to be very categorical about it. And then we also do have allowances for 50% of basic salary for all frontline health workers for 4 months. That was also announced as part of the measures by the president in his last address. Waiver of personal income taxes for all health workers for 3 months. Relief for health workers being the subject itself, and the provision of sanitation, Ghana National Buffer Stock Company making those provisions as well, food packages and hot meals. Of course, we do know what the concerns have been from those who criticize, and especially when it comes to Parliament on the side of the minority. Kojo and I are going to have some discussion. And Kojo?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're ready. We do have on the line a Deputy Minister of Finance, and she is also a Member of Parliament for Etiwan East, and Abena Osayasare is on the line. Good morning to you, ma'am. Ma'am, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, great. Thank you for joining us. How's the lockdown going with you?
Yes, we are working very hard to see to it that everything is in shape, even as we go through this lockdown. We are still at work because we need to still run the country. So we are still at work, but we believe that everything is going well.
This package, $1.2 billion, is it different from the initial $100 million that was announced by the president for fighting the coronavirus infection or the pandemic in Ghana?
Yes, the sources of funds are different. The $100 million was what we got from the World Bank, and this one is when we went to Parliament to seek approval to lower the cap on the stabilization fund from 300 million to 100 million. The excess of that 100 million is what we have put into the cap, or we have put into the coronavirus alleviation program. So there are 2 different things. And they all have 2 different distinct expenditure items. So yes, there are 2 different things. This is from the stabilization fund. You remember last week, government was in Parliament to ask Parliament to reduce the cap on the stabilization fund from 300 million to 100 million. And we had in the stabilization fund $319 million US. So when we gave us that approval, the 219 million excess is what we put in the contingency fund. And per the Constitution, you would have to come to the Finance Committee to give them a breakdown or how you intend to use the monies that have been put in the contingency fund. And that is a breakdown that the Minister of Finance shared with the Finance Committee yesterday in Parliament.
There's a there's a concern that has been raised following the appearance of the finance minister, that's your boss, and subsequently getting the approval, whether, and this one is supposed to know whether we have made some initial expenditures prior to this approval, for which we would need some payment to be made from this approval. Have we expended
from this particular one?
Have we undertaken certain actions or services for which we will now, or we have now gotten the approval to spend?
Okay. This particular one, there are three components to it. We have the support to the household, that's around 280.3 million. We have the support for the the relief for the health workers, that's 323.42 million. And then the soft loan of 600 million. For the soft loan of 600 million, we told the finance committee that the NBSSI is going to develop the criteria for identifying such beneficiaries. So clearly, this is something that we are now going to do. For the relief to the health workers, which is 323 million in all, we are now going to give them the personal income tax rebate. And for the 50% basic allowance, it is now going to happen. And for the busing, it was announced in the president's last briefing to the state. When you come to the support to households, you see that for the Ghana National Buffer Stock, we have 40.3 million. But this is not the total amount. We have already spent some money under the Ghana National Buffer Stock already, because we have distributed several amounts of beans, rice, and all these things. So several quantities, of these food to some Ghanaians. And for the provision of water and sanitation, it is now that we are coming to make that expenditure. And for food packages and the hot meals that receive 40 million, it goes beyond the 40 million. But this is what we can put under the CAP program. So there are several expenditures running under different sections. But this is the quantum that the CAP program can take from the monies that have been made available to it. So if you have seen us spending on food, there are others. For some, we took from our consolidated fund, and for some, we are taking from the CAP program. So these are new expenditures that we are hoping to make, in addition to what we have already done.
Madam Osasari, good morning. This is Kojo.
Your line is a bit faint.
I'm wondering. Oh, right. Can you hear me now?
Not clearly, but I think the other person's line was better.
Right. Let me ask the question. Roland will repeat it for you. So I'm wondering, the 600 million that is going for the soft loans. Can you explain to us how who qualifies for these soft loans, how they can access them, what they need to do?
Okay. In our submission to the Finance Committee, we made it very clear that the National Board for Small-Scale Industries, as the NBSSI, will develop the criteria for identifying these beneficiaries. But there are three things that everybody who hopes or to qualify for such a relief should have. One is that you should belong to a recognized trade association. Two is that you should have a tax identification number, that's your thing. And then three, you should have a bank account or a mobile money account. So on the surface, these are the three basic things that we'll be looking out for. But the criteria for identifying these beneficiaries will be developed by NBSSI. And so they will roll those out in conjunction with the rural bank.
Will it be your ministry that supervises the NBSSI on this, or will it be the trade ministry?
We also came up with a we think that to manage these things effectively or to implement it effectively, we should establish a steering committee chaired by both the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Trade, co-chaired by these two ministries. And then we also have other ministries into it to help us in this. But yes, it is going to be handled by Ministry of Trade and Ministry of Finance together.
There is a concern that very often people come away with the belief that distribution of resources like this are done on partisan lines. Can you explain to us what measures have been put in place to ensure that that cannot happen, even if somebody wants to do so, somebody at NBSSI wants to be partisan? What systems have you put in place to ensure that such a person cannot distribute such resources on partisan lines?
We have the implementing entities as commercial banks, rural banks, the faith-based organizations. And so you can't tell me that with these people in place implementing this amount of money to be dispersed, it will be done on partisan basis. The basic thing is that you have to qualify. The basic thing is you get your three things. You belong to a trade or association, you have your TIN, and you have a bank account or a mobile money. Once that is done, and then NBSSI, I'm sure it will be open and fair. The criteria will be discussed with the industry players because they will have to discuss these things with the various associations that these people belong to. And once they all agree on it, it is not something that NBSSI will go and sit alone and have it done. They need to work with the trade association. So once this is done and they agree on a criteria, everybody will have to follow the criteria. So I don't think in any way that it will be done on partisan basis. When you have these people in place, the faith-based organizations, rural and commercial banks all together implementing this, I believe that it is open and it will be transparent.
My understanding is that these commercial banks and the churches and so forth, they will be the outlets, but the decision-making will happen before we get to their point. It's not the rural banks that will decide who qualifies or who can get this amount. I believe that will be NBSSI. Am I right?
That is what I am saying, that NBSSI will not work alone. They will have to work with the associations as well.
To determine the criteria.
I'm sure, the criteria, they will let everybody have a look at the criteria because it is not something that will be hidden. They will develop it with one. Already they have an existing criteria for some of these things. But we believe that since you must belong to a trade association, you should engage these people. And that is what they are also going to do, to engage them, to fine-tune the criteria such that as many people as possible can benefit from this relief that government is giving to small scale.
Will the unions be part of the individual decision-making of who is approved and who is not?
Pardon?
Will the unions participate in the individual decision-making of who is approved and who is not?
It is not the unions, but trade associations. That is what I'm saying.
Forgive me.
They will together decide on the criteria. NBSSI will, in conjunction with these people, come up with a criteria for identifying beneficiary business. And I believe that this will sort of make it very transparent and avoid what you're talking about.
Right.
We've sprayed. We have sprayed. We have disinfected. Done a number of sanitation actions. So far, we've also made some commitment to the health sector. How do these expenditure patterns for some of these actions undertaken so far fall in line within this newly approved package?
Okay. For this particular one, the Constitution is clear. There are procedures. Have we fulfilled those procedures? Yes, we have fulfilled those procedures. And that is, once the money hits the contingency fund, you should come to Parliament and tell Parliament that this and that is what I want to do with the money. That was what we did yesterday through the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee looked at it. And once they have looked at it and they are satisfied with the expenditures that we have put under the cap, I believe that it is in line. It is in line with what we are doing, and it's the right way. It is the right way to go about these things. at the end of it all, then we will, through a supplementary, go to Parliament by the mid-year to inform Parliament that this amount of money that you gave to us or you freed for us to work with, this is the exact expenditures that have been made on these ones. And then Parliament can scrutinize through the mid-year budget review. But it's in line because once the Finance Committee has given us the approval, it's in line with the expenditure set for us. And so we can go ahead and then utilize the funds in here.
And I'll just go into the archives and quote a former Deputy Finance Minister, Atokeso Forson. He's also a member of Parliament, and I'm sure you're familiar with him. And one of the suggestions he made before Parliament was that we expect government to tap into Ghana's reserves. We have the stabilization fund. Okay, so that has, but he also says that there are central bank reserves that government also needed to tap into. Do we have any perhaps discussions already undertaken to make sure we go in that direction?
Okay. Thank you very much. But currently, this is what we have. When we get to that bridge, we will cross it. But I believe that, yes, we can do that. But when we get to that bridge, we will cross it and inform Ghanaians how we intend to do that.
Beyond this package for the small and mid-sized businesses, we have big players in industry who largely will be affected by this. Their bottom line, their projections for the financial year will be affected by this. What is available for them?
Okay. Government is also speaking to the commercial banks to assist businesses in that category. And so some work is also going on in that regard.
Madam, do you mind if I ask, the packages, the food packages, today is Thursday. We have literally 1 day left of the lockdown. But you have only just received approval from Parliament to spend the money on these packages. So what does it mean? Also, by the way, some members of communities like Ashaleboche have been telling us that they've had people knocking on their doors from NADMO doing research on where the poor are. So I'm wondering, at what point are we going to start actually implementing the delivery of these packages with just 1 day left on the lockdown?
Thank you very much. For the health workers, theirs is at the end of the month that they get to waive the income taxes. And for the 50% of basic salary, these things do happen at the end of the month. For the soft loans, we have said that NBSSI is going to work together with the trade association to come up with a criteria to identify these things. And for the food, I already said that we have started and that there are several programs that have the food package and then the national buffer stock and working under it. For the provision of water and sanitation, clearly it will happen at the end of the month. We all pay our bills at the end of the month. So this will happen at the end of the month. But for the food and the water, we already have some data that we are working with. It is believed that between 7 to 8 million people are within that poverty bracket. Already LEAP, the Livelihood Empowerment Program, is already doing something for about 1.4 million of these people. And we have also identified about 400,000 people that we're already cooking for on another program, and some from government-owned coffers. So, or from the consolidated fund, consolidated fund, if I should put it that way. So it is not just a day to the end of the lockdown. I'm just quoting what you said, that we've been given the permission to spend this money. Some of these programs are running concurrently on other facilities. And so throughout the period, we will try and identify all those people that need to be identified. But those who have already been identified, they are being supplied with the basic things that they need to be given.
Right. Now, the lockdown was for 2 weeks, but the president announced after 1 week that these interventions will be put in place. including the food packages that I'm asking about. So in the estimation that, or in the amount, 1.1 billion that the finance minister got approved, the 280 million Ghana cedis for the food packages, how many days worth of food packages is that supposed to cover?
The 280 million is not for the food package. 200 million of that is for provision of water and sanitation. And for the water, we have been given this amount that every month it will cost us between 64 to 65 million, to pay for water for the whole nation. So the 200 out of the 280 is for the provision of water and sanitation. 40.3 million of the 280 is going to the Ghana National Buffer Stock Company, and it is to procure food, beans, cassava, rice, and all the other food items that are needed for those people that will not get the hot meals and the food package, but rather be given these food stuff for them to cook on their own. The food package is for a 40 million Ghana cedis.
So how much is being spent on the hot meals?
The food packages and the hot meal is 40 million. That's what I'm saying. It's 40 million Ghana cedis.
And okay.
And we are looking at around 1 million people.
Right. Yes. So the question I'm asking is 1 million people over how many days?
Over 1 million people for 5 cities over 8 days. Because like I told you, some program had already started for the food packages and the hot meal. And so this one is 1 million people at 5 cities for 8 days, and it comes to 40 million.
Right. So that has already started. You've already started providing food for 1 million people every day.
What I'm saying is the lockdown started 2 weeks ago, but this particular one, we are supposed to implement over 8 days. Meanwhile, there was another program running for the food packages and hot meals. Like I told you, there are several programs running. So we didn't start the food and hot the food and hot meal packages today, although it's not that we are going to start it today. We started long ago. But for this particular one, that's under the cap, we budgeted for 8 days of the food packages and hot meals, and that comes to 40 million.
Right. So the 8 days are from when to when?
Pardon?
So the 8 days will start when and end
when? We had 14 days. We had 14 days. So if we're saying that we're doing it for 8 days, then clearly we'll take it out of the 14 days.
I just want to know whether people have been receiving food for 8 days, 5 cities a day for 8 days. That's what I'm trying to get at. So that's why I'm asking, when did they start receiving the food and when did
that these things are happening? You go to the ground where we are saying that we have distributed the food to see for these things for yourself. You go to Agogloshi, there are several places where you see, food being handed over to these people who really need the food to eat. So I believe that maybe you can also help by going around to identify and to see these things for yourself, and then you report to Ghanaians that this and that, or these are the areas where I have noticed that food is being given to, or hot meals are being given or served to citizens who, for one reason or the other, cannot do that on their own under this lockdown.
Madam, perhaps I may not have made my question clear. I'm not asking whether it's happening. I'm asking the period over which it will happen. Our colleagues have already gone out there to see some food being given, so we know it is happening.
Yes.
The question I'm asking is when will it begin? When did it begin? Sorry, and when will it end?
The food packages and hot meal is for the lockdown, and under the lockdown we had 14 days, and we are saying that it's simple budgeting. We budgeted for 8 days, so we would take the 8 days out of the 14 days. That's it. It's 14 days, and we budgeted for 8 days. Another program has budgeted for the 6 days, which started immediately the president announced the lockdown. So out of 14
immediately
days,
the announcement was made.
That this program
people started giving food.
8 days. That is what we mean by the food packages and hot meals for 8 days.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, from day one of this lockdown, government started giving people food every day.
Yes. And what this, I believe we are talking about this program that we took to Parliament. And what I'm saying is that out of the 14 days, government can take only 8 days out of the 14 under this CAP program. And that is what we have budgeted for, and that is what the Finance Committee has given us permission to do.
I guess I'm just a bit confused because the president announced the delivery of food on the 7th day, I believe. So we are saying that you were actually feeding people before the president announced that you will be feeding people.
Kojo, you are not getting it. Right from day one.
No, I'm not.
Right from day one, we knew that the lockdown was going to affect some people, or going to affect all of us in different ways. Some people were not going to be able to get at least a meal a day. And the gender ministry, government through the gender ministry, immediately put some things in place, some measures in place to sort of reduce this effect. And so, yes, we began through the gender ministry. And I believe that you can find out from the gender ministry. The gender ministry will be the best place to find out these exact facts. But I'm telling you that we made provision for some of these things because we knew that the lockdown was going to affect all of us differently. And for some people, it was going to be the fact that they would not be able to get a meal a day to eat. And so we made provision for some of these things. And like I said, this is not just the program or the money that government has spent under the coronavirus pandemic. There are several other funds, some from the consolidated fund itself, to help alleviate some of these side effects of the lockdown. So as I am saying, it is 14 days that the lockdown started, but only 8 days out of the 14 days that this particular program can fund. Yes, we gave some monies out. We gave some hot meals out, and I believe that you can also verify and check from the gender ministry. But I believe that government decided to implement the lockdown, knew that some people will be affected in this regard, and hence made provision as such for such people.
So for at least 8 days, we have been feeding 1 million people every day.
That is the cost. That is what government can take. And I believe that it might be even more than that. But government can only take 1 million on this particular project, or this particular program. Government can only do 1 million people. Like I told you, there are about 7 to 8 million people. There are about 7 to 8 million people that, would need some form of assistance. But out of that, government is doing 1 million, and other programs, social intervention programs, are running concurrently. So we believe that will also help. But mind you, the virus was not factored at the time we prepared our budget. So clearly, this is what government is doing out of the resources that it can find immediately to alleviate some of these measures.
So there are some people who will not be receiving meals, even though government identifies them among the 7.8 million who should.
I'm not saying 7.8 million should get the hot meals. I'm saying between 7 to 8 million, we will need several interventions. And out of that, we have identified this number of people to need hot meals. Kojo, let's go straight to what we think government is implementing, the amount of monies and things that government is focusing on to alleviate some of these hardships that have come as a result of the pandemic. And let's not, because it's really, really serious. We never budgeted for these things, but it has come, and government has to do something to alleviate the effects the adverse effects of the coronavirus on its citizens. And this is what government feels we can do now. Resources are not limitless. It is limited. For even with the limited resources, this is what government feels I can do to touch base or to alleviate the hardship of this virus on its citizens. And for me, I believe it's 1.2 billion to spend on this is huge.
Well, we have to let you go, but before we do go, the finance minister again was in Parliament last week, and he said that if we look at our revised figures and what the growth rate has been revised to, we're going to have a loss and also going to need a quantum of some 9.5 billion. I'm right. Aren't I right? Which will include the cost of the alleviation program. The finance minister. That's what he said. Now, so if we do the deduction of this 1.2 billion, ultimately it would mean that we'll have more. How much more do we estimate that we need to spend on other citizens and poverty alleviation actions within the period of the lockdown or within the period of the coronavirus pandemic?
Okay. Thank you. Yes, the finance minister said, as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, one, our revenues are not coming as it's supposed to come in terms of import duties and other domestic taxes. Again, our projections for our oil revenues have also come down. So there is a gap, and that is that gap. It is not the gap to feed or to sort of alleviate the impact of the virus, but it's the gap that has been created as a result of us, one, not getting the targeted or the estimated amount of revenues that we thought we were going to get, and two, having to spend some monies that were not or on items that were not budgeted for. So there are two different things that we are talking about here. This is the gap that we are supposed to find. Per our revenue projections, we are going to see a drop of about 9.5 billion as a result of this. And for the program to alleviate or to reduce the effects of this pandemic, it's a different thing altogether. But we take it as and when we are able to find some money to sort of reduce the impact. But clearly, no country can reduce the impact totally. We will feel some effects of the virus in one way or the other. But this is what we are doing to reduce the impact. And that is why we came to Parliament, that we have some excess. If they will reduce the cap on the stabilization fund, we will get some excess funds to help us alleviate or reduce the pandemic, the effects of the pandemic. And that is what we have done. So as and when we have to pick up, because when it prolongs, yes, we believe that, yes, we will still have to spend on or in some areas. And when we get to that break, I believe that we will all cross it with all Ghanaians in mind.
But that also leaves us with a fiscal gap per the briefing that he gave the last week of some 11 billion. And ultimately, it also means that the wider projections of government has been thrown into disarray. How do we intend shoring up, and from which of the sources, apart from the World Bank and the other Bretton Woods institutions?
We are hoping that within 3 to 4 months, things will improve and we will see some improvement in our revenue numbers. And also, we will fall on, like you said, when we have to fall on our reserves or fall on other sources of revenue, we will do that by announcing to Ghanaians that this is our intention. These are the intentions of government to source out more revenue to help us run the economy as it's supposed to run. So when we get there, yes, we will come to Parliament and then let Ghanaians know that this is what we intend to do. But for now, we believe that we have this. Let's work with this and see how best we can manage the situation. education for now.
Well, thank you very much. And we've been speaking to a Deputy Minister for Finance and Economic Planning, Abna Osayasari, Member of Parliament also for Etiwa East, helping us with all these discussions. And the answers we were seeking to the approval of some 1.25 billion being expenditure for the coronavirus alleviation program as is being implemented by government. But it's where we also transition and look at the next conversation. We told you that one of the agencies of health that will be greatly affected as a result of the pandemic and subsequently the lockdown that is being implemented is the National Blood Service. And we have to get officials of the service on stream to ask some critical questions, because it's this time that they're going to have definite shortages. And we do have Dr. Justin Ansa, who is a CEO for the National Blood Service on stream. Good morning to you, Doc.
Good morning.
So we're going to have a discussion on this related subject. But would you want to first start and ask some critical questions, if you have to?
To us, and we know how difficult it is to maintain the blood bank when donations are not always forthcoming. But in this time of COVID-19, are you still taking donations just from the general public? How do you know whether somebody's blood donation is infected or not?
Okay, thank you very much, Kojo, for having us. COVID-19 pandemic has actually affected everybody in a profound way. But with the blood service, it has really affected us. And that is in sustaining the national supplies. As you are aware, schools are home, religious organizations are home, some corporate organizations are home, and we, in normal times, we get more than 50% of our donations from this group. So already you would know that with them home we have a shortage. And secondly, there's also been restricted movement in some areas. So even for voluntary donors to come out, it's really a difficult issue. So what we have done, and that is what is also happening in many other countries, both developed and developed world, in this COVID-19 outbreak, is to shift from mobile blood collection sessions, mass mobile blood collection sessions, to having appointments. So what we have done now, being a responsible agency and ensuring that we are law-abiding, we do not get bad groups of people. We have shifted to the moving to the appointment system. So what we have done is to get donors, our voluntary donors who we have done to get to them from we have a donor call center. So we get to them online, and we call them for those who are due to come. And we also have given our numbers. We have a toll number, which is 0800 50 10 and 10. That's a toll-free number. And then we have another number, 0277 50 10 which is on SMS, WhatsApp, as well as on call. So if donors either come to our website and call us, the donor call center, and then we book an appointment with them. And we also are proactive and also get to our voluntary donors whose numbers we have at this time. And I just need to state that this is what is happening in all other countries around the world, because you cannot have mass donations. You want more than a lot of people coming together, because when we come together, you will not be able to ensure the social distancing. So we have moved from mass blood collections to the appointment system. So that is one. And also because in Accra, Greater Accra, and Greater Kumasi, there's restricted movement, we have also been able to get approval from the COVID-19 interministerial committee to they've approved for us to give a pass through the system, donor call system, to those who want to come and donate blood in Greater Accra and Greater Kumasi. So what we do is that we give them a pass, we issue a pass to the donor call center through their phones, and they carry it like as if it's a boarding pass. So they show it to the security when they are coming. So that is what we have done in the area of moving from mass donations to the appointment system. What we have also done to ensure we also have trying to get at the donors to also understand that they cannot get COVID-19 infection through blood donation or transmission. In fact, it's not been proven that you can transmit COVID-19 donation transmission. Even if it is minimal and it is theoretical. So what we have done is to also ensure that we have put precautions in place. And the precautions are to ensure that we stick to the protocols of avoiding COVID-19 infection transmission. So what we do is that we ensure social distancing. When donors come into our centers, designated centers, we first get to wash their hands, and then we take their temperature. And then the next thing we have done is we have an enhanced form, a donor screening form, where we take basically taking the history, whether they have a history of travel, whether they've been in contact with somebody who has COVID-19. And then we also ask them questions which is related to the signs and symptoms of COVID-19, whether they have a cough or cold, whether they have a fever, or anything that to having COVID-19. So we get them to self-defend if they have. But even after that, the professionals also take them through the same enhanced questionnaire to ensure that they understand that. When we realize that they are clear, which means they do not have any of what we're talking about, then they move on to the next thing, go through the medical screening. And there's also a questionnaire to make sure that the donor is safe and would not be disadvantaged by the as well as ensuring that the patient or the recipient of the other side would also not be affected with the blood. So they go through the process. What we're also doing now is to ensure that both the nurse as well as the donor put on the face mask. And then when they go to the process, make sure that the social distancing, we also clean equipment and all that after each donor. And we also took the opportunity to educate them. So this is what we're doing at our donor centers. So in addition to that, we have also put together an aid memoir, which we have shared with all the regional directors, with the CEO of teaching hospitals. In fact, countrywide, everybody collects blood or transfuses blood, and telling them that we have moved in from mass blood collections to getting appointments, and also the precautions that we're taking. We also, in our aid memoir, have also put in that clinicians to ensure that they transfuse only when it's absolutely essential. So we've done all these things at this time, but of course, we realize that there is still some problem. Because ordinarily, we would have a stock of a few, probably a week, but now we're having just sometimes we stop to do. So the shortage, and whilst we're making sure that we are assessing patients with COVID-19, we also ensure that for those who need blood do get it. People need blood because it saves lives, and for some people, it also it's also the quality of life is improved. Women, as we sit, COVID-19 patients, people getting COVID-19 or contact with COVID-19, we also realized that the need for blood is real. And we're even having more shortages now because the normal systems are all kind of suspended. So we should, what this call is for people to continue to donate blood at this time, to remember that somebody's life depends on our donation. So people should come out, make the appointment, and then come to the place and donate blood.
Right. Now, I mean, I hope people heed your call. But I'm not very clear on something. I'm trying to get to the bottom of whether or not, if I go into hospital with some condition that requires a blood transfusion, and I'm given blood from somebody who has COVID-19, will I get it?
Good. Asking this question. That's why we're saying that at the moment, it has not been proven that COVID-19 can be transmitted through blood transfusion. However, countries worldwide are taking precautions. And precautions is to make sure that people self-defer. So you have a first line of a questionnaire where those who are at risk or people who think they are in contact with people who are at risk do not come through the system. So we ask them to self-declare as well as we get a professional to take them through the questionnaire. So that is a precaution.
Right. So I understood that when you explained it, but it also occurs to me that there are some people who are asymptomatic, but can infect others. You know, so an asymptomatic person might fill your form, and there won't be any red flags because they don't have any symptoms and they are fine. They haven't come in contact with anyone who came from any of those countries. So is there not a certain risk that you might end up with infected blood in your banks?
Thank you very much for the question. What we do is that after the donation, that the donors are told, those who donate are told that when they go back and they feel any of the symptoms they discussed, fever, they feel the temperature, any of the symptoms, okay, they are supposed to report back to us. So then what happens is that blood is not used, so blood is quarantined. So you do not use it for another patient. So that is why we have the first line screening before the normal questionnaire. So COVID-19 has introduced the enhanced screening as well as the usual questionnaire. And then we make sure that we take the precautions, we advise them. So once they're there, tell them all about COVID-19, what they should expect if they have any of the symptoms they should pass, so that we do not use their blood for transfusion.
Right. So give us some numbers. At this point, what is the sort of deficit that you are trying to make up? How much blood do you need?
Ordinarily, we need, well, WHO, for a middle-income country like us, we need 1% of the population. So we're talking about 300,000, we're talking about 30 million. But even in last year, 2019, we couldn't, there was a shortfall of about a quarter. So with COVID-19, I expect that it's going to be even worse. So that is why we have, and also what other countries, listen to what other countries are doing to institute this appointment system. So we expect that, but if people are heeding to our call, people are coming in with appointment system, then that would ensure that we do not really disadvantage. I must say that currently most hospitals have put on hold elective surgeries. So now it is mainly emergency surgeries for women who have complications during pregnancy, delivery, or after delivery, postpartum hemorrhage. Children who have severe anemia as a result of malaria. People with aggressive people who have cancer and have aggressive treatment and sometimes need blood and blood components, road traffic accidents. So in this time of COVID-19, blood is going to emergencies because elective surgeries have been put on hold. So for those people, we would not be disadvantaged. We don't have to need the blood, but for the emergencies, we need that because we cannot tell one emergency an emergency. So for these people, we are sure that we can sustain blood, the blood supplies. Yeah.
Okay. And have you received any PPE from government since COVID-19 broke out in Ghana for the work that you do?
Yes, we have received some. We do not need the PPEs that are being used on workers. What we need are disposable people, and that we have got. We have received the mask, and we have received the disinfectants and all that we need for our work at this time. So we do not need the PPEs that are being used for patients because our donors are healthy donors, but we still take the precautions. And so we have the disposable gloves, the gloves, the mask, and then the disinfectant.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
N95 masks?
Say that again?
Is it N95 masks that you've received?
I need to find out exactly, but we had some masks, and I need to check exactly what type of mask it is. But it's good for the purpose. Yes. Yes.
So how about the stimulus package that has been announced for healthcare workers? Do your workers qualify for these, since you will also be coming into contact with members of the public in a medical context?
We're yet to find out. For the letter we received from the ministry are for people who are dealing with COVID-19. But I guess there's still discussions going on. So maybe at the end of that, those of us working in the blood service would also be. At the moment, we know that COVID-19. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
But I need to say
so
that
tell us if somebody
collections
wants. Sorry, go ahead.
Centers at all the regional hospitals. And then what we have done is that we've written to some people in the communities to give us their places so that we can use our fixed site. It cannot be mobile sessions. So we can control the people who come in and so that we can ensure the social distancing. So this is what we're doing. Right. And so not just at the hospitals or blood centers, but also in the communities. We've written to Accra Mall and places like that. So it gives us space. We'll be also closer to the people to come into and other designated centers. Yeah.
So if somebody's watching right now and they want to donate blood, how do they go about it?
Okay, in all the regions, they go to the regional hospitals because they have designated centers there. Accra, Kumasi, Tamale, the blood centers in the at the Accra area center, in Kolebu Hospital, in Kwanochi, and then in Tamale Teaching Hospital. But like I said, within Accra and Kumasi, you need to go through the system for the donor call center to issue a pass. Because formally we haven't had approval for the pass. But because we don't want it to be abused, it's going through the donor call center. And then it is given for a specific period. It's like a boarding pass. So you show it, you cannot come on that day, it expires, and then it has to be given on another day. So that is for those in Accra and Kumasi. But I'll repeat the numbers again. Okay, for the toll-free number is 0800 50 10 and then 10. And then the SMS WhatsApp call number is also 0277 50 10. Yes, and you will go to the call center and your questions will be answered. For anybody who wants questions will be answered and fears will be allayed. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Now, I've just received another question for you, so I'm going to put it to you real quick.
Yes.
We haven't heard the Ghana Health Service or the ministry in any of their announcements mentioning the blood service and the importance of your work at this time. What exactly is the collaboration between the blood service and the ministry?
Okay, thank you very much. The blood service is an agency under the Ministry of Health. Its mandate is to ensure the safety and adequacy of blood and blood products, blood components to all hospitals, private, state government, and public. So that is our mandate. So we supply hospitals blood. Okay. So at the moment, we have sent an aid member to all regional hospitals which are under the Ghana Health Service, to teaching hospitals, to the CHAG, which is the Christian Health Organization of Ghana, as well as the services. So we're telling them what we're doing. That is aid member we have shared and disseminated. The enhanced screening document, which we've also shared with them. So we've also made appeals so that as they discuss COVID-19 and all the, as they discuss issues, they also mention that blood needed. If somebody needs blood at the moment to save the person's life or to improve the quality of life of the person. Yes. Yeah.
Right. Dr. Justina Ansah, I want to thank you very much for your time and for that valuable education. Let's hope that we are still able to keep some donations coming in, even in these restricted times.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Right. Well, there's so much more coming up on the AM show, and you really can't miss any of it. Stay exactly where you are. We're back after these.
There's an executive instrument, and that executive instrument, logically, EI 63, we know it's coming from the president, but essentially, it then makes available to government and its assigns or agencies for telecommunication companies to give those assigns or agencies any sort of information they need, including the ones relating to public health. And this one came into force just recently, and it's all because of related issues of coronavirus. There have been issues, or there are issues that have been raised about whether this provisions of the executive instrument, and particularly the sections that are asking for public information to be made available when they have to be made available to these state agencies and assigns, could be an affront to people's privacy, and whether it breaches the Communications Act we have, the Data Protection Act, and related issues as we have them in our country. Well, we decided to have a conversation on this subject. Also pick the thoughts of a legal practitioner, and he's a regular on the show, Martin Pebu, and then ask him some critical questions as far as we're concerned on the subject. Good morning to you, Mr. Martin Pebu.
Yes, morning, Roland.
Yeah,
morning.
Great. Now, this EI 63, how different is it from, I remember, a bill that, of course, it didn't see the light of day, what we refer to as the spy bill, so to speak, under the Mahama administration, the Postal Packets and Telecommunications Messages Bill in the first place, before we transition and get to have details of what the EI stipulates and what that could mean ultimately.
Yeah, so you got it right. They are kindred. They are extremely related because in both there is an attempt to give powers to authorities to be able to interfere with our private telecommunications messages, calls, data, and all those. So to that extent, they are extremely related. I know when the spy bill was shut down with the help of Samson Ayeni and the CSO, it looked like the government at the time wasn't happy. And it's surprising that a few years on, with
Mr. Martin Pebu, I think
yes.
we have to re-establish the line. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, please continue. You went a bit faint, that's why.
Yes, so I stated that the current EI 63 is quite much like the spy bill which didn't see the light of day. They are quite alike because the EI 63 is asking the telecommunication service providers and operators to give government information on our telephone numbers, our calls, and text messages in the same way as the spy bill sought to do. So to that extent, they are very related.
Now, too, particularly when this one is saying including a public health emergency, after a period of a public health emergency, and since this one is already into force, what would it mean and how can it be abused in any way?
In law, there's this popular maxim that not even the devil can tell the intent of a man. Yes, but not even the devil can tell the intent of a man. On the face of it, yes, on one hand, we have to be trusting that government will use it only for the public health emergency. But history too has taught us that often government is interested in the activities beyond what usually it will sit on paper. That is how come people are apprehensive that this year 63 could be used for far more intrusive measures not related to this public health emergency. You see, so to that extent, at this stage, we would all be apprehensive. But it may also well turn out that government will not venture into our private messages, but will only use the system to track. So you see, Roland, and they've had to use this kind of system to track people's movement. You see, when they say don't move, stay at home, and then some people want to, flout the law, and then you find them moving very far afield from their home. When this system is deployed, it can be used to identify all such persons and inquiries made from them why maybe they went 50 kilometers from their house, 100 kilometers from their home, and so on and so forth. You say, yes. So some people are using it in other countries, but of course, this is a very strong country. We've never been as docile as we portray ourselves. People are very active and are always watchful. So it's good. But you are raising the alarm so that it will caution government just to stay within the public health emergency of the system it wants to deploy.
But how do these provisions within this instrument flout the sections of the Data Protection Act? And if you go to Section 35 of the Act, it says right of access to personal data. And it says a data controller shall inform an individual who is the data subject of the processing of the individual's personal data by the data controller or another person on behalf of the data controller. And it continues subsequently.
Yeah. Okay, good. So, yes, we're reading from the Data Protection Act. That's very correct. And even higher than the Data Protection Act, we have Article 18 of the Constitution, which says, okay, so since you've read, let me also read for mine so that we read it so that it helps emphasize the point. So 18.2 is the mother of all the prohibitions because, the Constitution is the highest law of our land. And so let me read 18.2. It says, no person shall be subjected to interference with the privacy of his home, property, correspondence, or communication. Correspondence or communication, except in accordance with law, and as may be necessary in a free and democratic society for public safety or the economic well-being of the country, for the protection of health or morals, for the prevention of disorder or crime, or for the protection of the rights or freedoms of others. So, Renan, you see, speaking as a matter of pure law, as I made a point earlier, for the interference, sometimes when there is a public health emergency like this, the Constitution itself envisages that there may be an interference. But the problem is that at what point, how sure are we that government doesn't exceed the stated public purpose of COVID-19 to go into other spheres. Let's say maybe they want to trail Roland on your personal matter, or they want to trace Mr. X, or they even want to trace a certain opposition person they don't like. So that is where the problem is. So on the face of the law, the Constitution itself says that in certain exceptions, we can interfere. So as a pure matter of law, COVID-19 can qualify. But the problem is, who will watch to ensure that government doesn't exceed? So maybe the best we can do is that at this stage, if perhaps we could modify the CI to put in a watchman, you see, so get somebody to do a watchdog role, because we don't want government to exceed. You see, so let's look within our society. We will gather the best of our people who have the best of integrity, and then set up a committee so that they would also be on board, so that if these are people as a society we trust and watch government not to exceed, then we can go on. Because Roland, if we're just to say that, oh, strike down EI63, we don't care about COVID-19, that one will not wash. It will not wash. So the best is that let's modify EI63 to bring down civil society organizations, not just civil society, individuals. We all know as a country, people can step forward, propose people who they are known to have very high level of integrity. They can't be compromised easily. Even if it was their mother or their dad who told a lie, they were exposed to person. Those kind of people that we can vouch for, we will get them. And then they are made part of the committee, okay, to superintend how this system is working. I think that's the best. Let's get a watchdog in the system.
And we're having hindsight based on our history with how emergency powers of the executive or the head of the executive have been abused in the past. And that discretionary power in the future could lead to decisions being made for which laws or regulations would be evoked. And ultimately, people's privacy and access to data could be breached. Is there something that as legal practitioners, as media, as society, we need to avert our mind to?
Oh, definitely. Definitely, because as we will still come back to the same point. Not even the devil can tell the intent of a man. Yes. So as for the likelihood, the potential risk that the laws will be used to breach our privacy and all that, it's very high, based on our history, that we are always asked to misuse power. That is it, and especially in the context of an African society, to say yes. So it's good. Let's make all the noise we can about it, all the agitation, so that we modify it. Because as I stated, look, from where I sit, because it's a public health emergency, if we are talking about a total taking down of CI63, that's quite difficult. Let's rather count for modification. I don't know, Roland, have you been receiving notices from COVID-19, like it comes as a text message?
I've been thinking it's been coming from my service provider. Is it? Oh. Do you have information that it's coming from the executive or the NCA or any other supervisory body?
No, so that's why I'm asking. Actually, at the point, I was also wondering whether it was coming from the executive. That's why I'm asking. So even if it's from the service provider and not the executive, so the point about it is that, so you see that every day they send a tip. So that's a useful tip. You see, that's a useful tip. So even if it turns out that it's from the government, then you see that at least that's one positive use of it. There could be more. You see why, if we were to say that totally strike out someone, it would be difficult. That's why we should think through about how to curtail the excesses, make sure that government doesn't go beyond the public health emergency.
Okay. If any individual wants to stop government in its tracks in relation to the execution of this, by what means can they do that?
Well, so some lawyers have shown the way. For instance, Martin has sued government. He's a lawyer himself, right? But acting through Justice Kensai. So they have sued government that the EI considers the fact that it interfere with their Francis private compensation constitutes a breach of his constitutional rights. So they've sued the government. The matter is in court. I'm sure in due course, government would be served. But if they've not already been served, and then the court will look into it. But you see how court cases sometimes take a bit of time. So in the interim, is that you guys are, hosting this kind of program. Do more of it. Let's call experts. Let's do more comparative to students from around the world, especially on the measures to make sure that government doesn't go beyond the COVID-19 to look into our private messages. Let's begin to do that in the interim. Because what I saw, from the letters that I saw is of the court case, it's not being heard even next week. No, it will take a bit of time. So at least more than a month from now, at least so far by what is decided, it's possible for the council to initiate processes to ask for an emergency hearing. But at least for now, it doesn't look like the case will be heard before 1 month. So in the interim, what's going to happen? So you guys, it's your constitutional duty to hold government accountable. And of course, as citizens, we are helping you as a media. So let's do the work now as much as we can.
If we want to transcend beyond our borders and we have to look at some of the very landmark issues that have happened, we've had, for example, Julian Assange with his related issues on WikiLeaks, as well as other individuals who have taken cases against the government of the United States, for example, but for which the government has always held sway and come up tops when it comes to some of those breaches, ultimately. Look, when we're talking about government, they are the most powerful. So to what end can some of these concerns being raised come to the fore and ultimately have some of these advocacy perhaps become the principal things by which they could be heard?
Okay, yes, very good example, Roland. Yes. On paper, government is the most powerful, but in practice, the people are actually the most powerful. And matter of fact, even on paper, even our own constitution, no, it's the people who are most powerful, not government. Because it says power resides in the people, and so for our own good, then we give government a share of it, so that government will govern us. So, cut straight to the chase. Governments are usually very wary when they are dealing with public opinion. So this Assange story we've mentioned, Roland, don't you see that the fact that it's been taking so long to date has not been tried? That itself tells you that the people are very powerful, because it was very clear that the information it leaked opened our truth to speak. It laid very clear all the suspicions we've had over the decades, the way government work. So you see that public opinion, especially led by the media, help to tell government that, look, we are not interested in the prosecution. Why do you think the Ecuadorian government was able to allow him to stay in the embassy for that long? It's because they knew that public opinion back then. Because, let me tell you, under international law, there have been occasions where if a fugitive runs in, the host state is able to go into the embassy and take out the person. You see, when they say an embassy is an extension of the land of the sending state. So let's say Ecuador has an embassy in the UK. So they say, the embassy is part of Ecuador's territory. That's just a fiction. There are various theories in international law, but the dominant one is that the host government doesn't go into the embassy quickly as a matter of courtesy. Because if you like to suspend in the embassy, what will happen to your embassy in the sending state? You say, so it's not as if truly the Ecuadorian embassy in England is an extension of the state of Ecuador. No, it's because of committee and, courtesy and all that. So the point I'm making is that had it not been for public opinion that the media helped to build up, nothing would have stopped the UK government from getting to the embassy and chatting out Assange. So just like you're doing this program now, on Saturday, something made his take where he complained. You're going on, yes, and other stations are also complaining. That pressure not to trespass into our private messages. And usually that works the least. It does. Because, trust me, if government were to interfere, the way this country works, somebody will leak it out. And as soon as it's leaked out, we will punish government severely, okay? They will pay for it. So I'm sure that the president being a lawyer, of course, they have people who monitor the radio stations and they know what the public is discussing. So they will take a cue from it and be sure not to trespass into our private messages, but that they will stay within the COVID-19 public health issue.
No, okay. So ultimately, perhaps could we have had the wording of the executive instrument go beyond including only a public health emergency to other related instances?
Well, that one, because the power belongs to the president, it's a matter of power. Yes, he could have. But you remember when they were drafting the Imposition of Restrictions Act, the Act 1012, right? Remember there was a public query about its very general nature. You see, others others advocated for it.
The British one, yes.
No, I'm even saying the Ghanaian one. You see,
yes,
when
definitely.
They were passing it in Parliament, some people were of the opinion that government should have been specific. The bill should have been specific to only COVID-19. But the way it was done generally so that it can be used in the future, people were not happy. So I'm making the point that, you said, can the EI have been done more generally? And I'm saying yes. As a matter of law, the power belongs to the president to make it. It could have been more general. But because people had complained when we're passing the main act, I think the fact that this one is more specific it would at least appease the people who were very scared about the general nature of the law. I don't know if you get the point.
Yes, I do get the point. Because there were instances within that debate that the reference was made to how perhaps we could have kept it within the boundaries of the way the British did theirs, within a certain period of a health emergency, and after that then it becomes almost moot, so to speak. But just by way of conclusion, if you, by your own observation, look at the powers that the head of the executive has, do we need more emergency powers for the president, so to speak?
Well, at this stage, I won't ask for more because we've not even gone into Article 31 yet. You say, so 31 onwards deals with the emergency powers of the president, but he hasn't invoked that yet. You say, and so it would be far-fetched at this stage to ask for more for him. Usually he has all the information that you and I are not privy to. So on the analysis of the information he has, so far he thinks so. He doesn't need to invoke a state of emergency. If that is so, then we will not even think about giving him more. Okay. So maybe let's see if there is time. Can I just read a bit of Article 31, the emergency powers?
Yes, you can.
Yes. Yeah. So it says 31 plus 1. The president may, acting in accordance with the advice of the Council of State, by proclamation published in the Gazette, declare that a state of emergency exists in Ghana or in any part of Ghana for the purposes of the provisions of this Constitution, and so on and so forth. And of course, so when he declares it, he shall put it before Parliament, that our people's representatives can look through and see if really his declaration of the state of emergency is lawful? I mean, is it reasonable based on the facts, based on everything? So the point I'm making is that if he hasn't gone in there, we cannot run ahead of him. Let's stay here, and as and when information is brought back, there is a need for a public emergency. Sure, we can contribute.
Well, thank you very much for your contribution this morning. And Mr. Martin Kubu is a legal practitioner helping us with that discussion there. We'll keep tabs on it, but we have to move on to other relative discussions as well. Mamavi, you're ready with an update?
Yes, but I love that conversation, you know, which essentially for most of us, when Samson Ladi Ayenini on Saturday did his take on corona chaos, reveals autocrats in democracies, just brought back the whole spy idea. I remember during former President Mahama's administration when that came up. And also a reminder, there were a lot of CSOs, the Ghana Bar Association as well, all commenting on
Occupy
that.
Ghana.
Exactly. CDD as well. And it just tells you, it's either we're so into the whole corona, we're social distancing and we are
we're turning a
all
blind
under
eye.
quarantine, or the people who are supposed to speak and explain matters to ordinary citizens are simply not doing it. For what reason? We don't know. We just have to wait for that court action and see where it goes. So really important conversation. But, you know, Roland, there are vulnerable people in Accra, the Greater Accra and Greater Kumasi, as we know it now, who have been promised. We know the gender minister said they're going to be fed. So we want to talk to NADMO this morning because they are also crucial to this sharing of food, either foodstuffs or packaged food. We've heard about hot meals as well. We want to engage George Aisi, who's Director of Communications with NADMO. Good morning to you. George, thank you for your time.
Good morning, Mama.
Great. We want to understand how the sharing of the foodstuffs and the food is going. So explain, what specific areas are we given food?
Yeah, thank you. As the gender minister has said, they're collaborating with the National Disaster Management Organization and the local government ministry. National Disaster Management is under the Interior Ministry, so that's the collaboration we are doing. First, the NADMO has the structures across the nation as far as the data on individuals who are considered vulnerable are concerned. And so we use that platform to support and get the projected figure of people that are likely to be affected, especially within the 40 districts in Accra and then Greater Kumasi.
So where are they specifically in Accra? Which specific areas are we looking at?
Yesterday, I was part of a team that went to the Malata market area in Newtown, and then we moved to Mamobi communities, and then we moved to the Nima area also, and then moved to Alajo. So there are places there that people are deprived. Slums are within these areas, and so that's the places that we take this food to. The hot meals, that's what.
Are you also looking at people who, because of the lockdown, can't do what they would do every day? So the shoe shine person, for instance, who doesn't necessarily live in Lima, may live in Amasaman, for instance. Are we reaching those areas as well?
Yeah. Yeah, all the NADMO district directors within this enclave are being given food to be able to supply to these people. They've identified the people and then they take the food rations to them. So that is ongoing. But yesterday we went to this specific area. We wanted the whole world to know that yes, indeed, this food supply is getting and reaching the people. So we took the media to some of these places.
So let me understand you. You went to Nima, Mamobi, Alajo, but these are not the only places you are giving out food.
Yes. No. I led a team to those places so the media can cover and then the world that indeed the program is ongoing.
Okay.
There are other places in Ashama, There are other places, as you said, in Ganos, Gassat, and all those places that our directors are collaborating with the gender ministry and then giving the hot meals to these people.
Okay, so what are we serving them? Breakfast, lunch?
No, one hot meal. But the gender minister said that as we go into the future, it's likely we're going to add breakfast. But for now, it's one hot meal a day, which is the lunch we give to them.
Okay. So, you know, when you say hot meal, like what's contained in that package?
Oh, some are rice, jollof, kenke. 3 days ago, they had pizza, tuzavi, and others. So it depends on the day and the meals that come with it.
Okay. Is this the same team that's also serving the police? By saying police, I mean the security agencies who are out there working.
No, I cannot tell. It's a different team that is serving the police. You know, it was explained that initially the police were given money to go buy their food, but when they had to leave their duty post to get food, it becomes problematic. And so they decided to restore to the military way, where the military make their food and bring it to their men on duty. And the police have also resorted to that. So it is the police administration that prepares the food for their men on duty.
Okay, great. So, you know, when we started giving out food, we actually didn't know the exact number. How many people were fed yesterday, and how many people do you think would be fed today?
Oh, and from the places, I don't have all the scorecard on my table now, but from the places we went to, we are looking at something in the neighborhood of 250 to 300 people within the places that we went, and even more. And I'm being conservative with my figures.
Okay, all right. I guess it's too early, to put things together.
But there's another aspect, Mama V. You did say the raw food. Yes, also ongoing. Gender Ministry is doing that directly. They package maybe 5 kilos of rice and then some other tomato and some vegetable attached to it, and then they give it to some individuals who then go to do the cooking on their own. We're giving the hot meal because most of these, as you said earlier, Susan Boy, others who have come to Accra to survive. They depend on their daily things that they do out there and get their daily meal. Livelihood is dependent on that. But since there's a lockdown, they cannot go out there to do what they do to get their meals. So that's how come we get a hot meal for them. Because if you give them the raw food, they are not going to get any place to cook them.
I appreciate that.
The other aspect. And the other aspect, which has been given through the faith-based ministries, the churches, Action, People's Methodist, Presby, and co, so they can know some of their members that are vulnerable and reach out to them. The Islamic community, the chief imam, the Zongo minister, has sent some of these things through the chief imam to reach out to these individuals that they know are within their stock, who are vulnerable and may need the support.
Okay, great. So how about the single mother of 2, 3, 5 who is unable to do what she normally would have done to get a bit of money and cook for the family, but who is not in these areas that can readily be identified as places where vulnerable people would live? What can they do to get hold of the food that is going around?
Yeah, because I said our men are also within the communities. And so they know some of these people. Maybe there may be challenges reaching out to all of them, but they know people within the areas, some of these single mothers, widows, and others who would need support.
Okay, but how do I identify, how do I get hold of, because, you know, we're all under lockdown in the areas, like in my community, people would move around, but not so many people will move around. So how do I know who's sharing what, and how do I get my share?
Oh, okay. We've put some numbers. The gender minister has put out some numbers, which, if you permit me, I'll repeat here.
Please do.
So people, if you know areas, you have those challenges, you are one of such people and you've not been reached yet, you can call those numbers and then they will attend to you. 0800 800 800, 0800 800 800, and then 0900 900 900, 0900 900 900. Okay. So these are lines that people can reach, and then the people will respond and then dispatch dispatch some of the food items to their place.
So what's the feedback on that? These numbers that you give out, are people really calling?
Yeah, in fact, yesterday the feedback I got was some people called me and I relayed these numbers to them, and they said it's a hotline and they've tried to go through and it was difficult. So they got back to me that they are finding difficulty going through, and so that's the challenge. Maybe we'll get this to the gender minister and see how we can get maybe additional numbers or something for people to go through easily.
Okay. All right, George. We'll leave it here. We'll be following up with you. Are you visiting any more areas today?
Yeah, we are likely to go to some places, but I'm here to get a schedule.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your time.
Regards to brother.
Okay.
Ray.
Roland. All right, sure. That's Director of Communications with NADMO, George AEC, taking us through in terms of the sharing of food, how that is going. Roland, you have to be embedded with this team the next time they go out, because we really want to see
definitely
the people who are receiving the food.
I'll be in full regalia, face masks, PPE, and just to make sure that I also get to have a feel of what it is. I haven't been out, when all these things have been happening formally with the media. I've been out during, the disinfection, the spraying and all, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, one more number he added though, 0900, so 0900 0900. We've got show business coming up here on the AM show. Please stay.
Good morning, my name is Kadi and this is Showbiz. Now, pioneer of hip life, Reggie Rockstone says he's too old to be having a beef with anyone in the industry. This came after the self-acclaimed dancehall king, Shatta Wale, went on Facebook Live to share his piece after the social media buzz on his comment on TV3 on Monday. The grandpapa told Hits FM's Andy Dosty that he has no time for a beef and acknowledged Shatta Wale for giving his watchy business hype.
But you have to consider my position in this country as far as the arts. I am an elder. What am I saying? I cannot be seen to be having beef, talking back and forth with people. No, I can't do that. My hands are tied. Meet me, yes, I do. Into your bona, I want me booming, I was something I need to stand so that these kids will accord me the same respect that I give to them. I had really promised not to even further fuel this because, my brother, my younger brother, he's a reactionary. He has always been. I mean, no one is surprised at Shatta's reaction to me. It's not the first time that Shatta has passed out on an interview. And I like to truly believe and deep in his heart that he has no malice towards me. I really don't think. First of all, it's not that serious. Come on, man. Because my watch has become very, very popular.
Watch it. So are you still selling?
Yes, we're about to do our deliveries because of the lockdown. Okay. Yeah. So, but because of because of the controversy. I didn't even know that there was that many people in Ghana who didn't know that I've been selling watches for 10 years. All of a sudden, people are calling me, Charlie, where I go to order the watches from Grandpapa?
Yeah, that's all we have for Showbiz this morning. My name is Kadi, but still stay tuned in. There's more Showbiz this afternoon.
And that's it for the show for the morning. Make sure you join us same time tomorrow. And it is between 6 and 9. Of course, I've been here with Mahavio Sawaje and Kojo Yankson. Kojo?
Yeah, it's been a fascinating show. That last Showbiz story really, really interested me. Thank you all for watching. We're back tomorrow with more. Mama B, can we do some more cooking after this?
We'll try as much as possible. But that'll be it for now. Bye-bye.